Hi, good evening. Austin Mayor Steve Adler. Got a minute? All right, a little bit different. Got a minute tonight because we're going to touch on the virus, but not spend a lot of time on it. We don't have real good numbers right now to update on hospitalizations. We know what the census is for hospitalizations in the city, and it's a little bit lower than the 7-day moving average. But we don't have good numbers on admissions, on ICUs, on ventilators. Quite frankly, our hospitals are working right now to make sure that they have power and the water necessary to do their work. Everybody's focused on these issues right now. Everybody's caught up in the weather and the power situation. The numbers seem to be going good on the virus. The positivity rate was down. But we're going to put that aside. We talked about the vaccinations last night. We've paused on those. This weekend, we should be out thawed enough to let people pick that up again. Know that if you've gotten your first dose, you'll get your second dose. It's not going to anybody else. You'll be called or reached out to by Austin Public Health and get a specific time. So you'll be taken care of. Don't sweat that. It'll happen. But for right now, the dominant issue for us and for us to talk about here is the power situation that we're in and the power out. I will say that I know a lot of people are scared and frustrated, angry, confused. So am I. Right now, with people going 60 hours without power, we're in a pretty bad place. We're asking more of people than we should ever ask. And I'm sorry that this is happening in our city right now. To make things worse, we do not have a good answer from the state as to when it is the power is going to be turned back on. That ultimately depends on whether or how or when the power generation that's happening at plants all over the state can be put back into service. We started out with over 5 million people without power in the state. I understand that number is about 3 million people around the state still without power. Where we sit in Austin, we don't have visibility. We can't see into everybody else's power generation happening all over the state. And ERCOT is not giving us a good idea of when that's going to come back online. The governor gave a press conference this afternoon. He talked about some of the elements coming back online. He talked about it in terms of the number of households that would be brought back into the system. That wasn't clear to me in terms of exactly when or in what numbers. I think that he spoke to about 2 million people coming back online with service in the next day or so. But I couldn't be sure. I continue to hear that some of the generation's not going to be able to be turned back on until things can thaw. And as the governor indicated in his press conference, that could be Saturday before the higher temperatures are sustained enough to be able to do that. That means the challenge that we're in is not going to be ending anytime soon. Still don't get good answers out from the state, from ERCOT, the Energy Reliability Council of Texas. Nothing reliable about what we're going through here. We need better answers on what went wrong. We need better answers on how we can be sure that this will never happen to us again. You know, my sense is that our system was not sufficiently hardened to be able to deal with sustained temperatures of 18 below zero for a significant period of time. In Texas, we protect against and sustain our equipment in really hot weather for a sustained period of time, but not the lower end of the range. And we need to. Quite frankly, with the extreme weather situation that we're seeing more and more of, I believe associated with changes in climate, we're now seeing extreme weather situations. This is the third time I can remember. Seems like it's happening about every 10 years that we're seeing this kind of extreme frigid weather. And I think it's something that we need to harden against. In Texas's electrical system, we have a deregulated energy system. In that deregulated energy system, we're going to have to do a post-mortem to figure out what went wrong here and how we stop it from happening again. But my preliminary thought, for what it's worth, and I'm not an expert, my preliminary thought is that there's not an incentive in the marketplace for a company to harden its system against this kind of risk. It's like buying an expensive insurance policy. Our focus in this deregulated system is on producing energy at the lowest possible cost. And when you do that, you don't buy the insurance plan. Well, here we are, not having bought the insurance plan, and we're now paying the price for this all over the state of Texas. But we can talk about those kind of issues later. What we really need to focus on right now is what we do to make sure our city and everybody in it, as best we can, is safe. And can make it the next several days. I want to talk about some of the issues that I've heard and are being discussed. Let's begin with the concept of rolling outages. When this initially started, the state reached out to all of the cities, all of the companies around the state, to say that demand for power with the lowering temperature was getting higher and higher and higher. They were seeing that some of the generation around the state was locking up or failing for whatever reason. So they went to the cities and they said, we're going to start limiting the amount of power that you can get. That is in the normal protocol. And the normal protocol then is that someone like Austin Energy that has less power to use, they make sure that there's no interruption for those circuits that have critical infrastructure, and then they rotate among everybody else so that part of the time you're on and part of the time you're off. Well, when it was actually implemented by the state, they not only reduced the power that was going out to places like Austin Energy, they reduced it more than anybody was anticipating. So much so that the only power that we got was the power sufficient to operate the circuits that had critical infrastructure associated with it, which meant that everybody else had their power turned off. So a system that had hoped to be able to do rotations was unable to do rotations because there was no circuit to turn on when we turned the circuit off. When we turned the circuit back on, there was no circuit we could turn off to make that happen other than a circuit that had critical infrastructure. That's really the position that we're still in, but we're beginning now to see some increased generation, and Austin Energy's been able to turn on some locations. Some locations are going on around the city having nothing to do with circuits being on or off. They're going back on because Austin Energy and its crews are able to repair lines that were taken down by the frigid weather that was putting ice on branches. They were falling down and disrupting the lines. So we have places in the city that are going back on because the lines are being repaired. We have some places that are going back on because there's a little bit more power coming into our city. But at this point, we don't know if we're going to be able to sustain that. ERCOT is not giving us any long-term suggestions. So there are no promises or commitments that we can make because we're not getting, Austin Energy is not getting the information necessary to give us guarantees of any kind. So we have to assume that we may not get power back here for the next couple of days, and we need to plan accordingly. If you have power, you're lucky enough to have power, then you need to conserve the power as much as you possibly can. You should probably start trying to live your life as if you did not have power so that you can conserve the most for everybody else that lives in the city. Drop your thermostat to 68 degrees. Drop it even lower than that if you can. Unplug all your non-essential appliances because just leaving things plugged in is draining power. Turn off non-essential electronics. Close your shades and blinds to try to reduce heat loss in your home. Avoid using large appliances like ovens and washing machines and that kind of thing if they're electric. so that we can just conserve as much as we possibly can. If you have power, you should consider inviting some folks to spend the next several days with you, as Diane and I have. We've been lucky enough to have power, but we have some refugees with us. That's a safer place for people to be than in a home, perhaps that doesn't have any kind of power. If your power has been cut, then again, try to preserve whatever heat can be in your home. Close off as many rooms as you can. Obviously, wear multiple layers of clothing. Do not use the gas stove or an oven for heat. I know when people are cold and getting desperate, that seems like a choice, but there are a lot of, too many people are making emergency calls right now because of the carbon monoxide. We had a mother and a daughter that apparently went out to get warm in their car. It was in a closed garage, and they passed away. I think those are the facts that we do know, that the mother and the daughter passed away trying to stay warm. So please don't do that. Don't sit in your car with the heat on. If you're going to go out to your car to charge your battery or to get the heat, make sure that you're outside. Crack your windows so that you don't deal with don't deal with those kinds of issues. Right now in the city, we are focused on making sure that we have shelter that's available, warming stations for people to be able to go to, warming stations, charging stations. We recognize that there are folks that would like to go, need transportation, and obviously the roads are slippery. If you go out and drive, make sure that you're traveling really, really slow. If you need a ride to be able to get to a station, call 311. If you can't get through 311 and there are real significant demand being placed on those calls right now, then you should call and contact the Austin Disaster Relief Network. Austin Disaster Relief Network. You can call them at 512-808-0800. That's 512-808-0800. People that can drive and have four-wheel vehicles are registering with them, volunteers. So they may be able to help you be able to get to shelter. I had the opportunity last night to go out and visit several of the shelters in the city. One up in the Northeast, one down in the Southeast. Had the opportunity in the shelter up in the Northeast to meet Betsy Hines. She's on staff with the Austin Disaster Relief Network. I just really appreciate people that volunteer. There were a lot of people from that organization that were there. She was doing really good work, and I really, really thank her. I went to the shelter in the southeast part of our city, got a chance to meet Veronica, who was there because there was heat and the ability to be able to charge up devices. They had a cot, blanket. There was food available. She was in great spirits, and it was what it was that she needed to get. Alberto Hess, former City of Austin employee, no longer one of the many volunteers helping there, and I really appreciate the work that he's doing. We're trying to get power on as quickly as we can. We're trying to open up more and more shelters for people to be able to go to. I know this is a really difficult period of time, and we're just going to have to weather this. What this situation, though, has brought about is yet another challenge. So we have COVID, and on top of COVID, we have this winter weather, which is causing huge problems with temperatures at 18 below zero. And on top of that, we have the power outage in such a significant part of our city. And now, on top of that, we have a water challenge. It appears as if in the last 36 hours, demand for water in our city has just gone through the roof. And if we can't move the water consumption down, then we're going to have more significant problems and the challenge and potentially a need to do a water boil across our city, which is something that has already happened in Houston. It's happened in Waco and Fort Worth. Dallas is having the same kind of situation we are. But this water issue is one that we can, I think, control. So my main focus for people right now is please conserve as much water as you possibly can. I could give you the kind of the feel for what this is. On a normal winter night, the amount of usage is at a rate of about 70 million gallons. That's the normal. Winter day, 100 million gallons rate to 120 million gallons of rate. During the peak period of our drought, period of time, was getting up to 130 million gallon rate. At this point, I asked the director of water what was the highest that he could ever remember seeing. And in his 10 years in Austin, the most he had ever seen in demand on a really hot day when people were running their air conditioners, 230 million gallon per day rate. Last night, 270 million gallons. During the day, up to 300 million gallon rate a day. That's beyond our capacity to be able to provide water. So we have to drive down the consumption in the city. Now, we're not sure exactly why those numbers are so high. Those numbers could be high because of pipes that are freezing and then pipes that are bursting. We could be having a significant amount of leakage. It could be because people are hoarding water, filling up bathtubs or sinks or bottles to try to preserve water. And we can't do that right now because it's contributing to the even more significant challenge that we have. It could also be that the advice that we've given everybody to have in this cold weather, water dripping through their faucets, is something that we also just cannot sustain. Can't sustain because we have so many pipes that are breaking because of the duration, perhaps, or because of customer usage. But in any event, when we drip, that creates water usage of about a gallon a minute, which would be about 60 gallons a hour, which would be about 1,400 gallons a day. And if that's happening all over the city, maybe that's driving the demand. So at this point, the city is asking that no one drip water through their faucets. I know there's a risk for pipes, but the risk of having us have to do water boil in the city, not having the water reserves that we need, is even greater right now than the risk associated with running water through the pipes and letting it drip. So Austin Energy Water Department has asked the community to not do that, at least until we can drive the consumption rate for water that is down. Hopefully we can avoid the situation in Houston and Waco and Fort Worth and Dallas, but that's what we should be focusing on now. I also want to just mention that when it gets warmer and the temperatures go up, it is anticipated that some of the people in our city are going to find themselves with water pipes that then are shown to leak. You wouldn't see that right now because the water pipe is frozen, but when it thaws, some people are going to find a leak. So at this point, I would urge everybody in the city, if you don't know where your water cutoff valve is, you should make sure that you go out and find it now. Find it now so that if in fact you have a leaky pipe and you need to turn off your water, you're not trying to figure out at that point where that might be. Here's a drawing. I don't know if you can see this, but the main water main line, the main line is not on your property, but it comes to your property. That main water line is in the street. but then it comes through the curb, through the public space, right off the street. You have a sidewalk or a sidewalk area. Hopefully, the city's putting in a lot more sidewalks all across the city, and then you have your property line. Just inside the property line is where you'll find the customer cutoff valve, and you should find that. It's ought to be on the private side of your house if you own it or if you rent it. Also, same thing true with an apartment. But find that customer cutoff valve so that you can know if you have a leaky line, you know where to go to be able to turn it off. I would also advise to make sure that you maybe make contact with a plumber now so that you've talked to one and have one on the ready. I would also advise you that if you make any repairs to the water system, that you save your receipts. A lot of times those are covered by your homeowner's insurance or by your renter's insurance. If you're in an area you're uninsured, in the area that's going to qualify for FEMA reimbursement, it could be that the federal government eventually will reimburse you. So make sure that you save those receipts. I also want to touch real briefly on something that I've heard about today that is real distressing. I understand that some of the work crews for Austin Energy that are working literally 24/7 right now, these are folks that are working with very little sleep because they are out trying to fix the lines and trying to move the circuits around and trying to get energy back to folks, are now taking the brunt of people's frustration and anger. These are folks that have left their families at this point, a lot of them sleeping down at headquarters in order to have maximum amount of time out in the field. But I understand that in the field now, there's a significant number of people that are harassing them. Even reports of people throwing snowballs at them, throwing rocks at them, cursing at them. It is hard to believe in our city that could possibly be true. We are better than that. I know of the frustration, I know the anger, I know the concern, but this is not Austin Energy's choice. We have a system in the state of Texas that's leaving millions of people without power. Our local staff are extending themselves. And we should be real thankful and appreciative of the work that they're doing. We have 4 24/7 warming facilities. I want to just identify for you: Palmer Event Center down here, 900 Barton Springs Road. Del Valley High School has space. Mendez Middle School at 5106 Village Square Drive, that's southeast part of town. Riley Elementary School at 405 Denson Drive. We also have warming stations that go from 9 to 9, so they're open till 9 p.m. tonight. Lee Elementary School at 3308 Hampton. Murchison Middle School at 3700 North Hills Drive. Joslyn Elementary School at 4500 Menchaca Road. Are all warming stations. We'll be trying to drive additional volunteers so that we can open them up even more. We need volunteers. We can open up more shelters, more warming stations if we had people that were volunteering and able to help us. We need volunteers that have 4-wheel drive cars that can pick people up where they are and help take them to a better and safer place. The place that we're using to focus on these areas is the website for the Austin Disaster Relief Network. That's adrn.org. If you went to that site, adn.org/shelters, you can find an additional list of faith-based locations that are serving as shelters. You can also call the city's cold weather hotline at 305-4233 to get information on warming and cold weather. But if you're ready to volunteer, as I say, we really do need folks that are helping to volunteer. The best place to sign up to be able to volunteer is at that same adrn.org website. I'm going to pull that up here on the computer screen so that you can see how to navigate that site and get into the place where you can volunteer. Go up to, this is the adrn.org site. Go up to the disaster relief on the top menu. The first one down is winter storm response. If you click on that, that'll get you to this page. If you go down just a little bit on that page, you can click here to sign up for volunteer opportunities in the city. This is to shelter at Mendez Middle School. This is to shelter at the Palmer Events Center. Click here. All volunteers are welcome to sign up. If we get a lot of volunteers, we'll be able to open up more. Here's one to sign up to be on call for people that need emergency transportation assistance. So again, adrn.org. Go to that website, disaster relief, and then to the winter storm response page. We would greatly appreciate folks that were stepping in to be able to do that. Let me look here at my notes and see if there's anything else. There is no water boil right now for the entire city, but there is a water boil request on in effect on some areas within the city that are basically in the kind of the western, southwestern part of the city. That's where we have the highest elevation. So when we have a lot of consumption that's draining down our reservoirs, that's the first place that's going to feel that. But if we conserve energy in sufficient quantities, we can stop that from spreading around the rest of the city. We need to do that. I know that there are water outages in places throughout our city. I think that's happening because of water lines that are freezing and bursting. So we have water crews that are out trying to fix those things so that we can get water in those places that are looking at challenges. Frankly, these next 2 days are going to be as hard as the days before, maybe even harder. If the power outages continue, if we don't get sufficient supply, it's going to be even longer without power. And I continue to be concerned about water, about lines that are freezing and then they start thawing. And we have additional leakage for us to deal with. This is a challenge in our community about as grave as you can imagine. The only thing that we can say about it is that we're all in this together. There are so many people that are volunteering all over the city. Perhaps that's something that you can do as well. It looks like on Saturday we're going to, if not before, we're going to be on the backside of this component, and we just have to do everything we can between now and then to try and keep folks as safe as we can. I was at the Palmer auditorium yesterday. About 450 people there, about 75 people, families with children that had to leave their homes because they were just not warm enough. I want to conclude by mentioning there was a Fox interview that the governor gave yesterday, where it appeared as if he was suggesting that the blame associated with the power outages should go to the decision to use renewable energies. Two things I want to say about that. First is we know that that's not true, that we lost probably about 44 1,000 megawatts of power. About 26,000 of those are natural gas plants, coal plants. Even one of the units at a nuclear plant was disrupted. So most of what we're looking at is those fossil fuel at uses. One of the chief problems we have right now are natural gas plants, because natural gas is in such demand. People are using it and wanting to have it for heating in their homes. So that was shutting down plants. The governor at his press conference today, I think, was asked about that. And he indicated that that's not what it was that he meant to be saying. And I was happy that the governor recognized that. We need to not get lost on these political tangents, really focus on trying to keep people as safe as we possibly can. I am sorry that we are dealing with this as a community, but I am so proud to see so many volunteers stepping forward. That's all that I have here tonight. We'll visit again. In the meantime, good night. And be safe.